so the next thing we're going to do is, while the soup is simmering and the potatoes are getting soft and the chorizo is starting to open up and release its flavor and everything is starting to finalize in there, don't be afraid to turn the temperature down if you think it's going a little bit too fast. And don't be afraid to taste it as you go also. I do like to taste. As a matter of fact, I have sanitizing water here on the side with all of my utensils in here, so I can taste as I go and I can use the same spoon afterwards, so it's not cross-contaminating or spreading my germs into the soup. You want to taste for salt now, but I do sort of want you to wait until the end when the chorizo and the salt pork has released all its flavor into the soup, and then we'll give it a final little salting and tasting. All right, so for the salad, so we have a bunch of nice ingredients here. I'm going to put these all on the table, and I'm going to go through these one by one with you. First thing we have is extra virgin olive oil. I will caution you on extra virgin olive oil. You want to choose an extra virgin olive oil that you really enjoy. Just because it says extra virgin olive oil doesn't mean that it's great quality. I'll tell you a couple of my personal favorite extra virgin olive oils that I know that you can get really easily. Number one is Publix has a high quality extra virgin olive oil, which is fantastic. Number two, Costco. Everybody goes to Costco. Kirkland. It's the number one rated extra virgin olive oil in the country by Consumer Reports. And I love Consumer Reports. I read it all the time, and I live and die by Consumer Reports. Great one. Another one that you can sometimes find in specialty high-end markets is called Corto. C-O-R-T-O. It's a California olive oil. It tastes a little bit more on the grassy side, but it's fantastic. So those are three great options. And honestly, you can use any one you want, but those are just a couple of recommendations. So that's extra virgin olive oil. The next ingredient we're going to use is white wine vinegar. Okay, you want to use white wine vinegar as opposed to distilled vinegar. White wine vinegar is actually made from white wine. Distilled vinegar can be made from a lot of different ingredients, and it doesn't have the same flavor profile as a white wine vinegar. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do chopped garlic. I'm going to show you how to do the garlic in just a moment. Dry oregano. Lemon juice. We're going to talk about how to squeeze lemons in one also. And then the last ingredient, Worcestershire. Okay, try spelling that. I dare you. Worcestershire sauce. You'll notice that I'm not going to add any salt or any pepper to this vinaigrette whatsoever. Worcestershire sauce has a tremendous amount of salt content to it, and it carries its weight on its own. The lemon juice we use in a very, very high concentration gives you a lot of great flavor. You won't miss the salt in this vinaigrette, I promise you. The recipe also calls for 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire. The reason that I left it a little open-ended there is there are different taste preferences, different salt level preferences. Some people like their vinaigrettes very strong, some people like them weak, some people have a sensitivity to salt, so it's completely up to you. I tend to go on the higher end, but I'm going to leave that one up to you. All right, garlic. All right, first thing you're going to do with the garlic, you'll always notice that garlic has a little bit of a stem end on it. We're going to trim that off. A lot of people forget that step. Not the end of the world if you do, but it's bitter. It chews a little tough, so it's something that you definitely want to remove. I like to stand up the garlic, and I like to cut the garlic clove in half like that. And then what I'm going to do is I want to mince, okay? So all I do is I just run the knife through the garlic. Now I do this extremely fast. You don't want to do that on your first try. And all I'm doing is breaking it down to a smaller size. And then for mincing, now we're using 4 cloves of garlic in this recipe. I've actually upped it to 8. You'll see in the notes down at the bottom of the recipe it says you can make more because it holds for some time, and it also works great as a dip for bread. So I made more because it would be nice to have around here for that. But you can put all 8 cloves of garlic up on the board, do exactly what I just did, and then once again, hold your knife like this, and then just run your knife through the garlic and start to break it down. Notice that I use my finger to sweep off the pieces on the knife. You want to be extremely careful, obviously. And when you scrape the garlic towards each other to tighten it up into a neat pile for the next round you don't want to scrape the wood. Because you'll notice if your sharp blade scrapes the wood, you're going to get little shards of wood into your pile of garlic. So you want to be careful not to do that either. So we're just going to continue to break this down. While I'm doing this, I want to tell you a quick story. Sometimes I go to my parents' house to cook, and they ask me, what do you need? And I say to them, okay, you know what? If I'm going to cook, don't worry, I'll take care of everything. All I need you to do is I need you to have garlic in the house, I need you to have white wine, I need you to have lemon juice, and maybe some shallots, and I can take care of the rest. And what do I get when I get there? Garlic in the jar, white wine and cooking white wine, and then I also get one of those squeeze bottles of lemon juice. And sometimes if I ask for butter, I can't believe it's not butter. Okay, those are not the things that you want to cook with. All right, garlic is minced. I have a lot of that cut up ahead of time as well. You'll see a lot of recipes for making vinaigrettes call for a bowl. You put your vinegar in there and your dry ingredients in there and all your spices, and then you whisk in your olive oil. I want you to forget about that for now. And the only reason that I want you to forget about that is because there's no stabilizer in this vinaigrette. If you had mustard, if you had roasted garlic, if you had reduced balsamic vinegar, if you had some other ingredients like glace, which is a reduced stock, that would cause the emulsion that you're about to form to stay or be semi-permanent. This one's going to break every single time, so there's no point in even trying. So what I want you to do is take your olive oil. Everybody has one of these at home. It's a quart container from a Chinese food restaurant. Everybody has it. It's a great place to use it. All your ingredients right in there. Your garlic, that's a lot of garlic. Your dry oregano, it's a good amount of dry oregano. Lemon juice, we're going to hold off on that for just a minute because I want to show you how we're going to process that lemon. The lemon, take your lemon, put it on the table, roll it around just a little bit. It loosens up the juice, it softens it. If that lemon is hard as a rock before you go to use it, don't use it. There's no juice in that thing. Cut the lemon in half. Buy yourself one of these. It's a lemon press. The proper way to use it is to put the lemon upside down. Okay, nobody really knows that, but it squeezes out most of the lemon juice this way. Upside down, squeeze your lemon. This tool is great. It gets so much juice out of that lemon. And then the second one. Now, every single time, one pit or two squeezes through the holes that are designed not to let pits squeeze through, but it does. So, just to be on the safe side, I have this, and you probably have a smaller one at home. Just take this little strainer, put it over a cup, and strain out your lemon juice. Just like I said, there's 2 pits in there. Okay, put that aside. Your lemon juice is ready. You're going to add your lemon juice right into that vinaigrette. And then your Worcestershire. Okay, this is 2 tablespoons that I've used. I used the full amount, plus then I doubled it. 2 tablespoons equals 2 ounces. Okay, so we're going to pop that right in there. My lid. Make sure that's on tight. Make sure there's no holes in the top. And then, voila. Okay, vinaigrette ready to go. That goes in the refrigerator. Okay, we're going to put that in the refrigerator to get nice and cold. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move on to the salad components. We've made our dressing, and as a matter of fact, I want to show you, as hard as we've tried, the dressing has already separated. Okay, if you did that into a bowl and you slowly whisk in the oil, like some recipes tell you, it will hold, but it'll only hold for a few minutes. Okay, and then it's going to separate. You all remember good seasonings dressing from when you were kids. Okay, it's the same concept. You put it in a container, you shake it, you mix it into the salad, and then you're good to go. So if I just give it another little shake, spins into one another, and it'll hold long enough for you to get it onto the salad. At the restaurant, they do this a little bit differently. They do this table side. I put the Worcestershire and the lemon juice into the vinaigrette. At the restaurant, they'll put the Worcestershire and the lemon juice directly onto the salad greens first. And then they add the rest of the ingredients that are already pre-mixed. And the reason that they do that is because they want a little bit of a stronger flavor of Worcestershire and lemon juice. If you put it into the dressing, it's dispersed, but if you concentrate it onto the actual greens, you're going to get a little bit more of an intense flavor. You're not going to be doing this table side, so it probably is best that you do it the way that I showed it to you. All right, greens. The recipe calls for iceberg. You can use whatever kind of greens you want. I would recommend that you use something that has a little bit of crunch to it and that it stands up to the rest of the ingredients that we're going to put in there. However, if you wanted to use spring mix, or if you wanted to use arugula, or if you wanted to use Boston Bib, or romaine, whatever you have, will certainly, or a mix of all those together, it'll certainly work really nicely for that salad as well. Iceberg heads, you want to look for one. I had another example here of an iceberg head. If I went to the store, this would not be one that I would select to take home with me. The reason being is because the head is loose. Okay, that means that it's aging. Okay, that means that it's deteriorating a little bit. You want to look for a head of lettuce that is compact, feels heavy for its size. That means that all the moisture is still in the leaves. And it'll always have a couple of loose leaves on the outside. It's always going to have a little bit of this oxidation color on a couple of little edges. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. But that's what you're looking for right there. I always like to take 1 or 2 layers off the outside. I don't know who's touched this last. There might be something funny on the outside of it. I always take one extra precaution, and I feel pretty comfortable that this is in good shape now. We're going to process this, and there's a couple of different ways to do this. I'm just going to tear it up by hand. Okay? If you're eating this salad now, please, by all means, cut it with a knife. And most of today's knives, you'll see a lot of recipes that say don't cut it with a knife because it'll brown the greens. The reason that they say that was because before the age of stainless steel, most knives were made from carbon steel, and carbon steel would cause greens to oxidize really quickly. It was just a chemical reaction. You're not in much trouble with a pure stainless knife. However, it's always best to tear them by hands. So a good way to do this is to press. You can rip the core right out very easily. Okay, and then just pop open the head of lettuce. And then we're going to give this a quick wash before we proceed any further. Okay, so we've washed our greens. We've taken a little bit of extra time to make sure they're really dry. If you have one of those salad spinners at home that spins the salad, that's the best way to get the extra water content off. Otherwise, you can take some paper towels and you can just blot it off and go through the extra greens. And so you're good to go now. Most of the time, an iceberg head is extremely clean. The way that they're grown, the way that they're handled, I've very rarely seen any dirt or insects inside a head of iceberg, but you're safer than sorry to go ahead and to give that a quick wash. All right, so it's up to you completely how you want to process those greens. I'm just going to take a quick little tear. The tear is a great way to quickly go through those greens. I happen to like my greens a little bit on the chunkier side. I think they look a little bit nicer. They stand up a little bit nicer on the platter or on the plate that you're going to put them on, but you want them to be about bite size. Okay, just like that, nice and easy. All right, let's talk about all these other ingredients that we have here. I have tomatoes. These happen to be beautiful heirloom or ugly tomatoes. They're a really nice variety. They happen to taste better. If at all possible, when you buy tomatoes at the grocery store, don't put them back in the refrigerator. Okay, when you put them back into the refrigerator, you lose all their flavor. So leave them at room temperature, let them ripen even more. I have some Swiss cheese, I have some ham, I have some green olives, and I have some Pecorino Romano cheese. Pecorino Romano is different than Parmesan. Parmesan is made from cow's milk. Pecorino is made from sheep's milk. Pecorino Romano tends to be a little bit more on the softer side. I think it has more flavor. For a salad like this, it's certainly a little bit more appropriate. Let's start with the tomatoes. First thing you want to do is you want to take their cores out. You can, or you don't have to. You can just cut this thing up if you want to. But I find that it's easy just to remove this core. Okay, just like that. And then we're going to cut this up into little wedges. Just you want to present the tomatoes as nice as possible. Okay, so just like that. This happened to be a really large tomato, so I may or may not use the whole entire thing. But we'll cut it. I happen to like tomatoes, so a little extra tomato is not going to be the end of the world. All right, Swiss cheese. So just like with the julienne before, we're going to do the same exact process. If the Swiss could be cold, that would be even better. But you're going to cut slices. Stack them on top of each other. And then cut them however you like. Okay, you can cut them into long julienne strips. You can cut them into short julienne. I like a little bit larger. So just go straight through with your knife. Once again, be careful if you have to separate that stack for the last one. Please do so. Okay, so that's our Swiss. Our ham, same thing. This one came pre-sliced. If it didn't, you would do the exact same process. Okay, strips. These pieces won't go to waste. We'll eat these in the kitchen afterwards. Okay, right back into the bowl so it's easy to transfer to your salad. Okay, the olives. It said in your recipe Spanish olives with pimento. Okay, and this is exactly what we had. However, the ones that I had in the refrigerator here were large. So please don't be afraid. They're perfectly fine to use. Just cut them a little bit smaller. Easy. I just cut them in half. You can cut them in quarters if you want to. It's completely up to you. If you don't like olives, leave the olives out. It's perfectly fine as well. I happen to love olives, so we're going to go a little heavy on the olives. And then the pecorino is going to be the last thing that we do. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our bowl. Salad greens are in. We're going to mix about, let's say, 70% of all the ingredients right in the salad. The ham is a little heavy, so I'm going to pull off on some of that. The Swiss cheese is a little bit heavy too. Tomatoes. I have this fancy grater. This is called a microplane. And it easily and very quickly and very finely grates my cheese. As much or as little cheese as you want. Going a little on the heavy side. Once again, remember to save a little bit for the end. Okay, the vinaigrette. Shake it up. This is double the amount, so I'm going to go a little lighter. Okay, quick toss. Now you don't want to break those ingredients up, but you do want to get the dressing incorporated and touching all those ingredients and on every single piece of green. All right, I have this beautiful platter that I found here. It's gorgeous. I like it. It looks beautiful. Just make sure that when you choose a platter that it's food grade and is okay for liquids. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our salad right here. You can see this makes quite a bit. And that's why I've saved a lot of these ingredients for the end, because it's nice to show all that garnish on the top. It makes it look a little bit prettier, more appealing. And that way it's not, and it's not all on the top. So as you start to go down into the salad, it's mixed in there real nice also. Okay, some of those olives on the top. And you may want to save a few more tomatoes for the end. Anyway, here's our salad. Last but not least, a little bit more cheese. You can put some fresh cracked black pepper on the top of this. I think that would be nice. But anyway, there's our 1905 salad. Okay, so the last recipe that I want to show you today is the simplest of all. However, this one requires a little bit of advanced prep at the same time. These are called plantains. They're in the banana family. We choose them to be green purposefully because that means that they're not ripe whatsoever. Okay, there's no sweetness. They almost taste like potatoes, very starchy. So that's exactly the way we want them, because we're going to turn these into what's called tostones. And tostones in Latin America are like French fries to the United States. A big staple, very easy to make, extremely delicious. The first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you've chosen the green plantain. It even says plantain on there, so I know that I've done it right. I take the sticker off there, and dumb little thing that I do in the kitchen is I put the sticker on my jacket. So at one point I can look down and say, oh yeah, there's the sticker. I even do that at home, and I have no idea why I do it, but I do it. We're going to take the ends off the plantain. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a small knife and we're going to run a slit right down the side of the plantain. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I find this way to be the easiest and best way to peel plantain. What I'm doing is I'm opening up the skin and I'm barely hitting the meat of it, this yellow part, with the knife. And then what I do is I take the plantain and I soak it in warm water for an hour, maybe 2 hours. And what happens during that process is you can see the plantain has now opened up even more, and I can get my fingers right underneath that skin, and the skin just pops right off. It's the most complete, it's the easiest way to do it. So this could have soaked just a little bit longer, but it's still perfectly fine. And the skin just comes off like no problem. You want to inspect the plantain afterwards for little tiny pieces of green on the outside. And if you see any of that, just take a paring knife and it just comes off nice and easily. You want to be careful to get that all off. Has anybody ever oversteeped green tea? Okay, when you oversteep green tea, you get that dry mouth instantly. It's called astringency. Okay, astringency is a drying of the mouth. It's a taste, but it's a negative taste. Okay, it doesn't taste good at all. It tastes bad. So That green skin is what has all that astringency, and you want to make sure that you remove that. I've seen a lot of chefs slice the green plantains with the green skin on the outside, and the reason that they do that is because it prevents the green plantains from curling. But what they don't realize that they're doing is they're leaving that gross flavor on there, and we want to remove that. So that's literally all I need to do this. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this plantain into 1-inch size pieces. Okay, that's now ready for the first stage of frying. Okay, so this is a commercial fryer. I know that you don't have one of these at home, and if you don't have one of these at home, there's a lot of different choices that you have to be able to do this. Number one, you can go and you can buy a small tabletop fryer. I think they cost $20 to $30. You can get them at Walmart, you can get them at Amazon. They work great for small quantities of things like we're doing today. Another thing you can do is you can take a pot and you can put some oil on the stove, and I would recommend just regular vegetable oil is perfect here. You want something with a high smoke temperature to it. And you have to be careful with the stovetop one because you could easily overheat it, so you want to make sure that you have a candy thermometer to be able to control that temperature. What you're looking for is 350 degrees. If you get something with a thermostat, it'll do that for you and you don't have to worry about that. Ours obviously has a thermostat built into it also, but there's definitely certain ways that you can do it. All right, easy enough. The plantains are dry. They're not floating in water. If they were, I would recommend that you remove this from the fryer, because if you splatter any oil into that 350 degree fat, it's going to sizzle all over the place. All right, but we're just going to add these into the basket. We're going to lower these down. Once again, 350 degrees, that's what we're looking for. And we're not frying them until they're crispy. What we're doing is we're frying them until they're soft. And there's a reason for that. And these are called twice fried plantains for a very good reason. Another thing, while they're frying, here's another piece of mise en place that I have. I have this is called a spider. God forbid one were to escape into the oil, I can easily scoop it out with my spider. And then this is a rack with it's a pan that has a false bottom rack on the bottom of it. And when I take the plantains out, especially when I'm finished later, I don't want to put them on paper towels, because what paper towels does is it traps moisture and it makes things soggy. You want to have some air that surrounds it and keeps things nice and crispy. Okay, so now that our plantains have been sitting for 30 seconds to a minute, you just want to get them to the point where you can handle them without hurting yourself, without burning yourself. A couple different ways to do this. Actually, there's a lot of different ways to do this. Dry kitchen towel, put it in the middle, use the palm of your hand, and just push. The thinner the better, but too thin and they're going to fall apart. Okay, that's what we're looking for, something just like that. Another way to do this is, once again in that towel, maybe you're just not strong enough to push down on that plantain. How about a pot or a pan? And just an easy little push. Okay, that's exactly what we're looking for. A couple different ways to do this. Tortilla press. If you have a tortilla press at home, that works great. Rolling pin. You can probably press down into a rolling pin. However you can get these guys flat, I guarantee I could probably push down on the bottom of this pan right here and it would be perfectly fine. So you have time here. If you're going to make these for tonight and you want to serve these hot and fresh and crispy, this is the stage that you want to get them to. Fry them once, press them all, put them in a pan, leave them. You can leave them for several hours at room temperature, and then right before you serve them again tonight, you can crisp them back up in the fryer. Okay, so this is not a critical step, but this is another step that you could do if you wanted your tostones to taste even better. I made a little saltwater solution before. This is tricky because you have to do this right before you fry them. So when you're ready to fry them, you're going to take your tostones, you're going to put them in your salt water, literally leave them in there for 10 seconds, and take them out. I learned the hard way a long time ago. I thought that, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll leave them in there and they'll taste even better. But the longer you leave them floating in the water, the more water they absorb, and when you put them down into the fryer, they just completely fall apart. So all we're looking for is just a little bit of salt flavor. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to fry them the second time. Okay, so the tostones have been pressed. They've been soaked in a little bit of salt water. We're going to go ahead and we're going to add these right back down into our basket. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to fry these a second time. Now you can go a little bit heavy on the addition of the tostones, but I wouldn't overcrowd the pan that much because you need a little bit of room for them to swim around and get crispy and do their thing. So what we're looking for here now is completely cooked through, extremely crispy, not burnt, but very, very crispy. So these have been frying now for, let's say, 3.5 minutes. You can see that they're starting to get really brown, but sometimes they're a little bit uneven. So don't be afraid to kind of push them around a little bit and turn them. They're not going to fall apart unless you've over-soaked them in the salt water. So you just want them to be nice and even, and you want to make sure that they're super crispy, because it's not a good tostone unless it's super crispy. So we're just going to take one out, we're going to check one, it's hot. One side is a little bit browner than the other, so we want to just get it a little bit more even. I know everyone's trying to be good on the salt, but tostones are just not the same without the salt. And there's a very critical time to put the salt on the tostones, and that's exactly when they come out of the fryer. Now you don't want to do it over the fryer because salt breaks down fat, but when we take them out and we put them on this resting rack, that's when you want to put the salt on it. When they're still super hot and when they still have just a touch of fat on the outside of it, the salt will stick to the tostones. If you let them cool down even the slightest, the salt's just going to fall right off. So it's the same concept when you're doing French fries. These look great. They're really crispy. We're going to let a lot of that fat drip out. We're going to put them right in here. Here's where we're going to salt. Now rain the salt on. Don't do it from down here, because if you do it from down here, you're only going in one little specific spot. So rain that salt on. Give it a shake. Make sure that all of them are coated nice and evenly. And that's how you make tostones. Okay, so all our cooking is complete. Our Spanish bean soup is ready. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to bowl that up now. Now remember, your bones are still in there, and that's perfectly fine. If you can work around them, great. If not, just remove them and put them on the side. But just choose a nice presentation bowl for that. You want to have a good combination of all the ingredients. Lots of potato, lots of sausage, but really, in my opinion, the most important part of this is the broth. I love a good brothy soup. So that's exactly how you want to present that soup. A little bit of chopped parsley over the top if you feel like you would like it to be like that. I think it looks beautiful the way it is. I did find, however, that my soup needed just a touch more salt. So I added just a pinch or two of salt at the end. But that's really all there is to it. Nice piece of crusty bread with that. Cuban bread would be great. Obviously, soup is going to be your first course. Your second course, our salad is ready. Please feel free to dress that up and have it ready ahead of time. I know sometimes it's hard to coordinate a dinner party when people are coming over, but this can hold up for a good half hour, 45 minutes if you keep it in the refrigerator. So you're good to go on that. And then last but not least, we have our crispy tostones. I did mention before about the garlic clove. I do want to show you what to do with that. So we dipped these in salt water before we fried them for a second time. I put a little bit of salt on them afterwards. But to make them taste extraordinary, cut a garlic clove in half. And just rub them on the top. If you'd like, dip with this would be nice. Maybe just a garlic aioli would be fantastic. Some hot, spicy pepper sauce. But anyway, it's been my pleasure to cook with you today and to talk about Cuban food, to talk about the Columbia restaurant, and I cannot wait to do this again. I cannot wait to meet you the first time. I hope you enjoy the food. Thank you.